Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 9 of the Saturday Morning Gaming Show. It is October 12th, 2019, and I am your co-host Ryan, joined by...
Lobos, who is also joined by...
Retrograde Tom. Hello, everybody.
Oh my gosh, you have your own co-host.
Wow, yeah, that's right. I brought my own co-host onto the show just because, you know, I think there's a little more weight to be carried here, and
You're moving up.
And
you got you got that multi-level marketing thing going, right?
That's right.
The referrals, so great.
It's very complicated.
Well, today we're playing Myst for the PC, and that was released in 1993 by Cyan Worlds. So real early in the 90s, huh?
Early in the 90s, running in the 90s. Yeah, I played Myst when I was a kid. Loved it. I definitely beat it. And it was you know what? That was probably one of the first games I ever thought about, like, the idea of a speed run, because of the fact that if you know, like, the code, you can just run straight there and, like, basically finish the game.
Yeah, I think the world record of this game is about 50-some seconds. So, yeah, it's a bunch of flipping switches and then going to the end. Now, I think, Tom, you had indicated that you'd played this as a child and it was one of your favorite games. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's definitely one of my favorite games of all time, and it's probably a game that had one of the biggest impacts on me, because you want me to tell the story of when I got it and everything?
Yeah, let's hear it.
Sure.
Yeah, so I remember getting it for a Christmas. It must have been early, mid-90s. I mean, it came out in 93, so I don't remember the exact year, but I just remember getting this box, and games at that time, you get a manual, right? And the manual would describe everything about the game, the story, and then you would sort of know what you were doing when you went into the game. But Myst was totally different. It didn't have a manual, and this is the original Mac version, like the very first version. It didn't have a manual, and I was like, what is this thing? I mean, I have no idea how my parents knew to get it for me, but it was just, it was like the first time I ever played a game where you were discovering about the world as you played it instead of reading about it first, and you had no idea what was going on. It was just like mystery after mystery after mystery as you're exploring the game. So
yeah,
really had a big impact
mystery.
Oh, Mr.
Mystery. That was an accident.
No, well, actually, it wasn't, because so we're on Myst Island right here. We just started the game. You start on a Myst Island. This was actually named after the Jules Verne novel, The Mysterious Island.
Oh.
So it says it right in the name.
Wow.
Excellent segue there,
Nice
Tom.
bit of trivia.
Yeah.
Right.
And yeah, actually going back to that, so it was released in 93. I remember this is the game that made CDs popular. And back then, like, to have a CD-ROM was an expensive thing. That was like a $300, $400 piece of computer equipment.
Oh, yeah,
and so I didn't have a CD-ROM, but all the cool kids did. And they'd be like, oh, man, take a look at this Myst game. And it looks gorgeous. It was so cool.
It does.
And these are all pre-rendered scenes here. So it's not, most of it is not real-time rendering. There are some situations where you'll click on an icon, and in order to move something, it'll play like a little animation. It looks like a low quality actual video file that is overlaid on the screen.
Yeah.
But I think we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. Let's talk about a little bit what Myst is, in terms of, like, how do you play the game? What is the purpose?
Sure.
here?
Yeah. You click a lot.
That's great. That's the episode. Thanks everyone for joining us.
Great. Yeah. Good to see you. So it's like it's a quote unquote 3D world, again, pre-rendered, but these basically little screenshots of the world while you move through it. And you can click generally on the center of the screen to move forward. Sometimes you can click on the bottom of the screen to move backwards. You can turn left and right on the sides of the screens. You can look up sometimes. And then, of course, if there's anything you can interact with, you can click on that as well. But there's no indication to that necessarily. So you kind of have to click on a bunch of things until you figure out what does what, if anything.
Yeah, and Tom, I know you play a lot of adventure games, and this is very different than the adventure games that I was used to, because there are actually very little things that you can pick up or interact with in this game. Is that correct?
Right. Right. You don't really have an inventory like most point and clicks previous to this. You can pick up a page at a time, and that's it. And if you try to pick up 2 pages, nope, sorry. Gotta put the other one down and pick up the new one and bring it back. But it seems frustrating. But I think, to me, Myst is really a perfectly designed game. Even that aspect of it works really well, even though it sounds frustrating.
Well, it is completely a minimalist in that inventory, like you were saying.
Yep.
Other games, they will fill up your inventory. You know, even something like Monkey's Island 2 will give you items you don't even need for your inventory to kind of play with that. But yeah, this is something there. If you have to pick up a page. By the way, let's talk a little bit about the concept of the page. So to set up a little bit of the why you have to collect the pages, the beginning of the game, you basically see I guess I'd call him like the creator of Myst. We'll call that for the sake of discussion here. So Atreus is the character's name, and you see him falling down into what is later known as the Star Fissure.
Or Atris, I think.
Sorry?
Atris?
Atris, yes. Thank you for that correction there. And so he drops the Myst linking book. So this Myst linking book is what allows you to link to the different ages in Myst. And so what you find out is early on in the game, you go to the library and you see these two books. There's a red book on one side of the library and a blue book on the other. And if you open up the book, actually there's 2 pages next to the book.
Right.
And so, like, back to what Tom was saying, it's sort of masterfully designed, because the first thing you do is you're like, great, I'm picking up a blue page. Maybe I click it on the blue book.
Right.
And it takes it. And you're like, great, well, maybe I should open up the blue book. And then there's like a little video file that plays. And it's very fuzzy, right? Tom, do you know what these guys are saying? It's really hard to tell, right?
Excuse me.
Right. So it's really fuzzy at first. So that's part of the mystery of the game.
Okay, there we
that
go.
You'd have no idea who these guys are. You just see these creepos talking to you through these books, and you're like, what is going on? It's staticky, and you're trying to catch words, here and there. And as you put more pages in, things sort of get clearer.
Yeah, and actually, so my understanding of this, and I think I was completely wrong, but please verify for me here. I thought that, so the first time I opened up the page, I was like, oh, this is super broken. I can't understand what they're saying. And my assumption was each page made the same message come through clearer, right? So you're basically like tuning in a little bit. If you consider it like a radio station, it's like each time you put in a new page, you get close to that radio station. So, and there's 4 different pages for each book. So what I didn't do is every time I put in a new page, watch the video file. Because
they're different.
They're different. Yeah, I think so. Because I was like,
are.
all right, we'll just go to the end, and then I can see everything and don't have to worry about that.
Right.
So, do you kind of have an understanding like what they're telling you?
Yeah. Well, I mean, like the first ones are basically like, I don't know who you are, but get me a page or whatever. And there's not a whole lot of dialogue there to pull from. And then as you go, they'll start to explain the fact that there's another book that is one of his brothers or whoever's brother, and that they want you to get pages for their book, but they're bad, so don't do that. And then as you get like to the final page, they're like, there's one more page to get, and they as Tom said, they're kind of creepy video files, but not necessarily because of the static. As it clears up, they kind of get even creepier because there's some personalities, man.
Yeah. So there's 2 books.
The whole time you're trying to figure out, which one is good. Which one should you help, because they're both saying each other is bad.
Yeah, and so they definitely have a unique personalities. So there's two books. Cyrus is the red. Was that correct?
I believe so.
And then
Cirrus.
Cirrus, yeah.
And then Akner is the blue. So Tom, can you go into a little bit about like their personalities?
Right. So the way I describe them is, well, I don't want to give away spoilers because we're at the beginning, but one seems like smarter, more Cirrus in the red book. He's wordy. He seems more intelligent. And then Akinar in the blue book just is completely insane. He's got these weird little giggles that he does every once in a while, and he seems nuts, but at the same time, he could just be crazy but nice. So it's hard to figure out what's going on with them.
And what's really fun, another piece of trivia here. So to be clear, these are FMV sequences that you watch. So a real human was recording those.
Mm-hmm.
And they were played by the 2 brothers that designed the game. Rand and Robin Miller both played Akner and Cirrus. So I think that's cool.
I think Cirrus might have been a different actor.
Oh, is that so?
Atris is, I don't know which one. Atris and Akinar, I believe, are the brothers.
Oh.
Okay.
Well,
I have to double
blame
check that.
Okay, interesting.
Wikipedia or wherever you got that trivia
Yeah.
from.
Yeah.
Thank you for that clarification there. So let's go on to a little bit about the puzzles here. So we're on Mist Island, and Mist Island is comprised of, if I were to guesstimate, let's say like 20 different screens. Seems about right. And you kind of click around there, and there are a lot of puzzles, but some of them are very apparent that they're puzzles. We're at a puzzle right now where there are 2 valves and a big red button, and you twist these valves. And what's interesting is you don't know what is happening when you're twisting the valves, because they cut to just looking at the valves.
Right.
You can't see the environment around you. So the only way is through noting there's a big clock tower in front of you. And what happens is you twist those valves, and then you exit the screen and you look, and the big clock has changed.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, I think this is a puzzle to solve.
Probably. You probably need to know a certain time to set and then hit the red button. Where do you get that?
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Yeah, well, where do you get that? How do you know what time?
Well, so the core of Mist Island in particular's puzzle seems to be there's this big tower that you can rotate by interacting with a map screen in the library. And Tom, do you know exactly what is required for it to for the line to turn red that's pointing at a location?
Yeah. Oh, by the way, I was wrong about the actors. One of them plays Akinar and Atris, and the other does play Cirrus. Just a correction.
Oh, okay.
But to get the markers on the map, you have to turn on these marker switches, which are on Mist Island.
Yeah, and that I think what was really interesting is when you are exploring the island, you see these switches, and so the first thing you do is you're like, I'm gonna flip a switch, right?
Right.
So here's a personality. I'm curious how each of you approach this, because if you flip a switch on and nothing happens, do you keep it on, or do you flip it back to the off state? Because I generally will flip it back to the off state.
I keep it on.
How about you, Tom?
I'll flip it on and off a few times, and
Yeah.
hopefully I don't forget how many times I flipped each one.
I think for me, I kind of like to reset things to a state, like a known state. I
Sure.
don't like to have a bunch of things in my world. I'm like, well, this could activate at any time. But actually,
Right.
that serves as a disservice in this game, because unless I'm missing something, there's not a clear mapping or a clear understanding that rotating the tower will only turn that line red if you have the switch turned on. So, again, what you probably did, Lobos, if you just leave everything on and you're exploring the whole world and you're just like on, then we rotate the tower, everything just turns red, and you're like, great, now I can do all these things.
Yeah, well, I generally see a switch or lever like that, at least the way it looked, was like some sort of power, circuit. So I'm like, I'm going to keep all of these on. Once they're all on, something will happen. And actually, there is something secret kind of that does happen. And I accidentally fumbled into that during my playthrough again. And I was like, oh, yeah, I remember this now.
You did that by accident?
I did it by accident. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, I was just like, I happened to return to the start point again, and I flipped and it opened, and I was like, what?
Yeah,
Oh.
I saw people in your chat were very angry with you. They're like, you're not supposed to know that. Put it back, Lobos. So, basically the reason why you want to twist this tower is, well, one of two things. One will activate power sources or allow you to interact with other things. And the second thing is, once you point the tower at that location, you can back up a little bit through a secret passage in the library and go up into the observatory, and there are things written on the wall.
Yeah, there's there's plaques that will change based on what you're pointed at. And I always loved the correlation. There's two sides of this tower. You can climb up ladders and look on either side. One side has a plaque, and the other side has this little narrow vertical window that will it'll give you a view on the actual island of whatever you're pointed at. So you can make that correlation there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so the first place I ended up going to was Stone Ship. How about you two? What was the first location you found?
I went to the, I don't remember what the name of it is, but there's the giant gear, and the gear opens up, and you go down there.
That's the Mechanical Age.
Mechanical Age,
Yep.
Okay. And the way you get there...
I think mine was Channelwood.
Channelwood, okay.
Oh, nice. All different places. Then.
That's really cool. And yeah, and by the way, this is, you can consider it almost an open world game, because you go to Miss Island, and there's no sequence that you have to complete the puzzles in. So as you see, we all started out in different locations there. The funny thing is, the first area I accessed was the mechanical age, like you, Lobos. Because what you do is you solve this puzzle, and a little gear opens up, just like there's another really, really large gear on the island.
Oh,
and
yes.
that's how then it has the book to allow you to get to the mechanical age. So that opens up just like the little tiny one that you solve. But I didn't make that association. I saw there was a small gear that opened up. I'm like, great. There's no key or anything in here, so what the heck was that for? I don't know. Let's move on to the next thing. And I ended up, I love astronomy, by the way, Lobos. I know you're a big astronomy fan. And one of the puzzles allows you, or has you basically looking at like a star lab for constellations.
Yeah.
And that's how you get to the stone ship age.
Those aren't real constellations, though, right?
I don't know.
Spider and the snake.
Well, it is on the Mist
I'm sure
Island.
somebody
Yeah.
has seen those somewhere at some point in time.
Yeah. So this whole area, again, most of the Mist Islands or the Mist Ages are pretty small, self-contained puzzles, but there's a lot of depth in them. A lot of interlocking parts here. So you go to Stone Ship Island, and this is it's basically a ship next to a big outcropping, like a rock, and all the areas are flooded. And so the first thing is you see 3 little lights. They look like lights. You click them on, and you hear like a little noise, but you don't really know what's going on till you explore. And you're like, okay, each one of these pumps is going to remove water from one of the locations.
Right.
And
I would say that, like, in general, each age that you go to has like one core mechanic kind of, and then from that there are separate, little puzzles within that that you have to solve. So this one is, you drain specific areas, and then you go into rooms, and then you've got more stuff to figure out and keep going.
Yeah. And so we went into each of these ages has a room for both Cirrus and what's the other guy's name? Akinar, thank you. And they're all very, very different, and they all have weird things. Like some of the ages will have like axes and swords, and we just saw some syringes and pills. So you get they seem like they just have a lot of weird stuff.
You start to learn a little bit more about their personalities, especially when you go into like Akinar's like torture room, and you're like, okay.
Yeah, I think Myst is really good at environmental storytelling, and it was doing this in the early 90s too.
Yeah.
You just sort of see, it's not just saying like, oh, like a note that says, oh, I murdered a bunch of people, or I'm doing these drugs or something.
Right.
You're just sort of finding it, and you're like, what is that? And it just keeps building and building, and I think they do it a really interesting way.
Yeah, and I love it when games do that, because there's a lot of effort that goes into making a room look interesting, but if there's no reason to look at it, there's no real story behind it, a lot of players will just kind of run through it. But this gave me an opportunity to be like, all right, well, what's going on here? Now, I don't need to know any of this to really progress with the game. You can kind of just click around, but you get from Myst what you put into the exploration and the discovery. And I love this because I actually have a leather-bound journal, so I was like writing notes in the pages there. Completely beautiful. Now we're getting to a section here. I actually wanted to discuss a little bit with Tom because it made me so angry. He found this out right away. So by the way, people call him the Puzz Whiz, and I understand why. So you go to you go up to the top of this rock, and you see like a scope or a telescope, and what happens is you can look through that telescope, and it has a bunch of coordinates, not coordinates, but like numbers. So you have like 10 degrees, 20 degrees, 30 degrees, and as you rotate across, it goes all the way to 360 degrees.
Right.
And so you spin the thing around, and at about 135, you see a blinking light. You're like, okay, cool. That's important. 135 is important. And so what that correlates. Well, Tom, why don't you tell us how that correlates to a future puzzle?
It correlates to this, I guess it would be like, what's the word? Some sort of a compass design, which is in a hidden room where you have to actually press the light at 135 degrees. But I don't know if you guys played Old Mist or Real Mist. There's so many different versions, but I was playing Real Mist first, and it doesn't have the blinking light there. So if you played that, it's a lot harder to figure out.
Well,
whereas in the original, it has the blinking light.
So the blinking light for me didn't show up until I turned the generator. So did you look at it before you turned the generator? Because I noticed that, and I was like, okay, all right. And I noticed that had changed. So I think that's, I don't know. I mean,
Okay, that might have been it.
yeah.
Interesting. Now I actually brute forced my way through this puzzle. So basically, I think there's 30. Like Tom said, you see a compass, and there's 30 little things to click on.
Yep.
And if you click on the wrong one, an alarm will go off, and all the lights will shut off. But then like this really cool blue like emergency light comes on.
Oh, yeah.
And if anyone's ever seen Lost, it's so reminiscent of The Hatch, and I love that. So The Hatch is basically this area where there's this like fluorescent light, and all these words appear when the emergency lights are on. Anyway, so basically what you have to do if you click on the wrong button, you have to go back and restart the generator. So it's very hard. And here's the issue I took. I also thought it was 135 degrees, but I was considering it more of a unit circle. So if you consider the unit circle, 0 degrees is essentially all the way to the right, 90 degrees is to the north, 180 is to the left, 270 is to the south. And so what would have been 130, essentially you're supposed to start 0 at the north, and 130 degrees, 135 is kind of the southeast there.
Yeah, I did maths because I was like, if you counted like by fives all the way around, like it didn't add up to 360. So I was like, all right, cool. How many buttons are there?
Yeah.
Divide that into 360. Add how many space? It was 12, I think. The 12th like little boop. And
Number 13.
Huh?
I don't know
think.
how I
Is
got it as a kid.
Well, I didn't count the first one, so it was like 0, 5, 10.
Oh, see
Yeah,
the
so
programmer mentality right here. All right, cool. Well, I'm glad we all solved that. That one kind of took me a little bit of time here. Again, Tom solved it, no problem. How long did it take you to solve, Lobos?
I don't think I got stuck. I just kept trying things until I figured it out. So it wasn't a whole lot.
Yeah. You only have 30 options.
I
so.
would say most of the puzzles in this were a good pace, barring one that we'll talk about later.
Now,
I'm sure Tom knows.
the next location we are in is a mechanical. By the way, we did have a poll on the Twitter, the Saturday Morning Gaming Show Twitter. You can follow us at Saturday M Gaming. In any case, we had a poll, and 30. Actually, our favorite ages were tied between a mechanical and the spaceship age. So people seem to really enjoy either the one we're on now or the spaceship age there. And I think there are different names for these. I call it the spaceship age, so we're gonna go with that. But
I think it's Selenitic.
yeah, that sounds about right. But what doesn't even mean anything.
It means I looked it up. It means pertaining to the moon.
Okay.
Oh.
I saw crystals. In any case, I think spaceship makes more sense, so we're gonna go with that.
So this is, I think, the first age that I came to, and I looked around. And every age, once you go there, you're stuck until you figure out a puzzle to get back to Mist Island. And this was the first one I came to, and I ran around for a little while, looked around, managed to solve the puzzle that took me back to Mist Island, and then I went to the next one. And
Yeah, same here.
It wasn't until much later that I came back here, and there are some little hidden wall panels that you open. And that kind of opened up the game for me because there were a couple of hidden panels elsewhere that I didn't really know or think to look for. So there is a lot. I mean, there can be backtracking if you miss something, and I really
If you
liked
missed something,
missed.
thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah. I really liked this elevator puzzle though.
Yeah, this one was really great because they have a sequence in one of the rooms. I don't remember whose it is. It's like a little tower simulator. I think they call it Fortress Simulator.
It was a tower rotation simulator.
Yeah, that's what it is. That's what it is. And so what you do is you have these two knobs, and when you manipulate those, it will fake rotate, simulate rotating a tower, and you hear like a little audio cue. And essentially what you find out is if I turn it to the left, it has a certain sound, and then you turn it to the north, it has a certain sound. And you're like, all right, cool, well, that's weird. There's okay, so maybe I'll write it down, maybe I won't. And By the way, there are other things in this room that also seem important. So there's 3 crystals, and you
Yep.
hover. There's like a yellow diamond, a green sphere, and a D20, that's a red one. And then there's a bird that you can rotate, and its noses are different colors. And I'm like, okay, I got to remember all this stuff because like maybe there's a sequence because his nose is like red, green.
It is.
Yeah, and I'm like, all right, cool. Well, somewhere there's a pattern of colors I need to know.
Yeah,
But-
that's just like leftover from the CDR where it was cool to interact with 3D stuff.
Yeah, and actually, that's a good point because there's like some areas where like you open up a box and a snake jumps out at you.
Oh, yeah.
And you're like, okay, this is really just showing off technology, but that's fine.
And then there's that little chessboard that you can look at, and I was like, aha,
Yeah,
keep an
oh,
eye out
this is
for
a
chess
puzzle, yeah.
pieces. I was like, no.
But ultimately, like you pointed out, there's the tower puzzle here, and so you go up to the top of this tower. Essentially, what you want to do is you want to rotate the tower to either 0, 90, 180, or 270 degrees because there's platforms you can get to that are only accessible when you rotate there. And so you go up to the top of the tower and you rotate it, and there's no indication other than a sound when you've hit those locations. So you're like, oh, I understand. You have to go to the Fortress Simulator or the Tower Rotation Simulator, jot down what each sound corresponds to the
Right. Which
coordinates.
direction? Yeah.
And then you go up and then you're like, all right, great. I know what to do now.
Now, really quickly, just to rewind, since we're watching it, especially here, that simulator, there's 2 levers, and the left lever you have to like push up, and it's kind of like an unlock, and then the right lever, while it's unlocked, while the left one is unlocked, you can hold it up, and that'll do the rotation, and then you pull the left lever back down, and then it makes the sound. When I was first doing this, I would pull the left lever up, I would rotate, and then I would step away, and I'd be like, okay, well, I don't know what's going on. And it took me a little bit more experimentation to figure out the whole lock mechanic. And then I was like, okay. But I really liked this presentation. You go up this elevator, you step out, and then you can, I think you said that you didn't, but you can look up.
Yeah, I didn't know you could look up and see the controls up there.
Yeah, and you can see 2 little joysticks up there. So you're like, I need to get to the top of the elevator. And there's conveniently this button that has like a timed closing of the elevator door, and then it descends back down. So you hit that button, you jump out, and then the elevator descends. You get access to that control panel.
So I'm never going to knock anyone's puzzle solving abilities, but I do want to comment here, Lobos. It took you a while to figure out, and it surprises me because they do this all the time in Dark Souls, where you're supposed to send the elevator up or down, get off, and then like jump on top of the elevator. So
That did not take me long to figure out at all.
oh yeah, okay.
Immediately, I was like, oh, cool. Because I looked up, and then I was like, cool, I need to get to the top of that. I don't know, maybe it seemed that way.
Maybe it seemed that way. Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, like you said, I completed this area, and I had done an area before this, so I knew there was an existence of pages, but I completed the area and I didn't find any pages.
Right.
So
same.
I was like, okay, well, maybe I'll come back later and have an idea there. But I know Tom. I was watching Tom, and he found the pages.
Mm-hmm.
Tom, being the genius he is. Tom, where are these pages?
Well, I had actually forgotten about them when I played it. I had to remember, look up, aka remember whatever, that there are the 2 hidden doors in each in 2 sides of the center room, and that's where the pages are, and that's where you find out about Cirrus and Akinar's extra weird stuff that they're doing.
Oh, yeah.
I think I don't remember who it was, but someone's keeping people in cages and.
I think it was
Yeah.
Akinar. I think Akinar was
Yeah.
really more the barbaric type.
Yeah, he's kind of like the warlike brother.
Yeah, and each storeroom like had like riches and all this stuff. So you can see
Right.
that. Let's talk about the story just a little bit because
Sure.
what is it? What's his name? Atris. He has found a way to like write books or something, and then these books open the way to new ages, and that's how you're traveling between these. And so he allowed his sons at some point access to these ages, and you can see from what they've left behind the fact that they've come to these ages, kind of like made their claim to certain stuff. They get all these riches, and however they maybe manipulate the population there or whatever. Because they seem mostly like kind of like tribal populations that aren't capable of defending themselves or understanding like realm travel or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, and I think that Atris actually even mentioned that because you'll talk to him later on, much later on in the game, and I think he mentions that he actually stopped access for the brothers in all but 4 ages. I think that's how that went. Tom, do you know one way or the other if that's correct?
I'm not sure. I know they burned a bunch
They
of them.
burned a bunch of books.
and
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
There were 4 left. I'm not 100%.
Yeah.
Sure.
Now we went back to Mist Island, having completed 2 islands here, and this room frustrated me. So basically, when you start the game, if you turn to the left, there's an obvious indentation in the wall. You click that, and it's a secret passage. And I remember when I first started the game, I went to the left, and I moved my mouse around. I was like, oh, well, there's clearly nothing here. I didn't even bother clicking. But I suspect that this room right here, which has like this pool of water or something. It's basically a big mechanical device that will display holograms.
It's like a cauldron, it looks like.
Yeah. And I suspect that this is the first room many people really experience or interact with.
So if you take a couple steps from the beginning, there's a note on the ground
Yes.
to Catherine, which is Atris's wife, I believe.
Yes, that's correct.
And it says, I've left a message for you at the 4 chamber by the docks. So then and from that point, I was like, 4 chamber by the docks. And at some point, I went over to the docks, and I was like, oh, yeah. I actually found that door before I found the note. In any case, they give you a clue to enter the total number of marker switches on the island into the imager. And you're like, okay, whatever. I'll count the switches and keep that in mind. And it turns out there's a panel to control this cauldron. And I think there's 8 total switches. And if you enter 8 into that panel and then click a button on the cauldron, then it plays like a message from Atris himself.
It's a very long message too.
It is, but it's kind of sets the story, sets the stage for what's going on here. I think. Pretty well.
And I think he actually gives you the first real direction in the game, because I think he says something like, he's like, I've hidden these things away in the place of power. If you forget, remember the tower rotation, or something that.
The key is in the tower rotation, I think is what he said, something like that.
Yeah.
He also calls you Catherine. So when I first played the game, I thought I was Catherine playing as Catherine.
Well, see, I thought that too. I was like, well, maybe you are Catherine.
So according to the canon in this game, you are this individual called the Stranger, and I think that's really all they give you. So you're just a dude that finds this world or something.
Sure.
Again, I think this game had very limited lore initially, and then subsequent games actually expanded on it. So when I was doing some research of the games, it was really hard to determine what was actually in the original Myst and what was linking back and sort of retconning the lore of the Myst through the subsequent games. Now, I want to take a step back a little bit, because you were talking about the note you found to Catherine.
Yep.
And it said, meet me by the chambers by the dock. Right? And the interesting thing about puzzle games is once you feel like you've solved a puzzle or you made that association, it's very hard to unassociate with that. So when I saw that, I thought there's a room that has like a furnace in it, and there's a chest. I'm like, well, if you kind of map it out in your head, it's pretty close to the docks, because it's on the same side. It's not next to the water, but it's pretty close to the docks. And there's a chest or a safe you can enter some numbers. I'm like, all right, well, that's the location he's talking about, right? And it wasn't until I started clicking around some more, I'm like, oh no, I was in the wrong location there.
Nice. We were talking about lore a little bit. There is a bookshelf in the library, which is where you find the brothers' books. And you can read some of the books, and most of them are burned. But there's really lengthy lore about finding different ages and talking about the people there, and it's kind of like detailed journals and stuff. And there are clues for puzzles. I think one of them has an image of a piano with some numbers on it that comes in later for access elsewhere. But yeah, I read through at least one of the books, and it was I don't know, 20, 25 pages of lore. Yeah. And I just sat there reading it all on stream, just
and
it was cool.
I imagine trying to stream this and read it and interpret it are a little challenging. Tom, did you read and internalize all the books there?
I read them because I played through it a few times. I didn't when I played it again this week, I didn't read them because it's a long story time if you read them all.
Mm-hmm. It is.
But they're good. They're good. I think they give a good backstory. For a game that really sort of doesn't have like a narrative. They created a very interesting universe. I think.
Yeah,
and
totally.
Part of it is those books.
Yeah, and I think it's telling after playing this game. I was like, I should check out Riven because this world seems like it's very interesting.
Riven's, they take what they did with Myst and really make it incredible in Riven.
Yeah.
Sure.
I see. I've never played Riven, so
there you go. That's
might have
homework.
to.
No, we're actually just to the location we were talking about earlier, which was the furnace room. And I kind of play around for that for a little bit. I finally figure out the way you enter or you open up the safe there. I think it's a location you see on the walls in the observatory, like we talked about. You set the tower rotation, and it tells you the rotation of the safe combination, and you go in there and there's like a book of matches. And I think everyone that I saw, Tom, and maybe I don't remember Lobos if you did this, but I did the same thing. You open up the book of matches, you're like, I've got a match, awesome. And you try to shove the match in the furnace, and it's like, nope, that's not how matches work, son.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it was very like, programmer step by step. Like, how do you light a fire?
Yeah.
Well, you get a match and then you put it in the gas. Nope, you got to light it first on the matchbox. So I thought that was cool though.
Yeah. But before we go on to, because that's going to basically bring us to Channelwood. But again, I had such a hard time trying to figure out how to get to Channelwood. So I did a little diversion and I found the power combination. Again, through the tower, will tell you there's a generator room and you essentially have 10 buttons. And you have to, each of those buttons will increase the power output by some number. And you basically have to add up to hit 58. And so I don't know if it's only one combination that will work or if there are multiple combinations that will work. But in any case, you activate the power and that goes all the way to this cool looking spaceship, which actually, we talk about Jules Verne again. This looks like something straight out of Jules Verne, right?
Yeah,
this
totally.
Sort of like, it's like a submarine spaceship thing.
Kind of steampunky with like these, this porthole window like interface thing.
So I as a musician, Lobos, I'm assuming you loved this puzzle.
I liked it. Yeah, I love music puzzles and stuff.
So let's talk a little bit about this one.
Yeah. Well, I wrote down the musical notes when I saw the guide in the book.
Wait, are you talking? You're like, oh, this is a C sharp.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah. Well, it was like low, middle, and high. So I was like,
Okay.
this is middle C. This is low C.
See, that's.
And so when I came here, it was very easy to just.
I hate you. You're just like transcribing the musical notes.
Did you play any songs? Or?
Oh, I didn't. I should have.
How about you, Tom? How did you do on this puzzle?
Oh, I love music puzzles too.
Yeah.
I've played piano since I was a kid, so
Oh, nice.
I was fine with it.
Nice.
Oh, cool.
Nice.
Cool. I would just kind of hum the note to myself. So basically, you have to. There's a piano on the far end of this little spaceship. And when I say far end, it's really only like 2 screens, but it's such that you have to click the piano button, and then you have to kind of go over to this thing and then increase a dial to hit that same note. And there's 5 notes. They have to hit the same pitch. And then once you do that, you flick the lever, plays a little tune for you, and if it's got the right tune, it will activate. And you were talking about books earlier in the library. You do see in the end of one of the books actually has that piano and it has all the notes there written. So all you need to do is copy those down on a piece of paper and then come over here and play some music.
I would say, funny enough, the hardest thing about me reaching this age was finding the the electrical tower that is located behind the generator place, because you have to click like just to the side of the building and it's a path that takes you behind it and then you pull the switch up there, and I just didn't realize that. So I was like, what am I doing here?
Yeah, I guess that's actually connecting the power or activating the power between the left side, because there's a big power line,
Right.
and I guess that's like a junction box or something you have to actually swap.
Yeah.
Now, what is going on here?
I don't know
Does
why
it-
it's
does it
static.
always
I think
do
that, I guess it does that. It
Okay.
does that. But yeah, it'll show you a little flyby of whatever area
Anytime
you're
you go
entering.
into a new Myst stage, it does a flyby of the entire island, which gives you a brief understanding of how it's laid out. And it's especially cool when you keep going back to Myst Island. Although you don't actually get to see a flyby of the Myst Island, you do get opportunities to actually see Myst Island from above. And once you've seen that, it's really cool because you're like, oh man, those are all the locations
yeah.
I've spent a bunch of time.
Yeah. At the very beginning, you do a flyby, but it's like if you're not
that's what I was
familiar with,
thinking of. Yeah, so now we're in the spaceship age, which I think Tom had the technical term here. What was that again?
Selenetic.
Yeah. Yeah. So why don't you describe a little bit about how this world or this age works?
Yeah, so in this age, you basically just explore around and you see these stations, which are near some sort of geographical formation, like water or a crevice in the ground or air, or I forget the other two at the moment. And you flip a switch and you hear a sound, and then as you explore around, you eventually find this sort of viewer or imager. And if you've hit the switch at each of the sound locations, you can hit a button, or you have to move the imager on 5 different to the 5 different locations, and then you hit an imager, and it gives you like a frequency, and then it sort of tells you how you need to get through this door later, the order of the sounds to get through a door.
So it'll give you a frequency between what, like, we'll say 0 and 360 or something like that.
I think it is.
Yeah.
And so it's the numbers themselves aren't important. It's just the relations between each other. So like Tom said, you'll have to just order, because earlier on there's a door, and you can hear those same sounds. And there are more sounds than just the ones that you find on the island. So there's 5 sounds on the island. I think it's like wind, fire, crystal, and water, and then like a time or a clock.
Oh yeah, a clock.
And so those are all selectable on the door, and so there'll be like from left to right, there's 5 dials, and you have to basically say, so like if water was like, let's say frequency 1, that would probably be the lowest, so that would be on the far left. And then if you had like fire was like frequency 300, it would probably be on the right. So it's again just ordering those dials.
So that is what I thought going into it. That you just figure out the frequencies and then order it low to high. But when you set them all in this imager to their proper frequencies, then you hit the little sigma that plays them all at the bottom. It plays them in a different order.
I was very confused about this. So again, this E, it's like a backwards E. In mathematics, it generally represents the sum.
The sum. Yeah, well,
so
it plays
like,
all of the...
what is a sum value, and how does this... I still don't understand what that button does.
No, so you play that, and it plays the sounds in the order that you need to put them in the door. You don't do it like... I thought it was frequency, like lowest to highest.
Oh, is that how that works?
Yeah, but it wasn't lowest to highest. It was slightly different. Because that's what I thought at first. And I was like, okay, cool. Just find the lowest frequency and then work up to high. But it's like...
Actually, I think you're right. Because I do remember now going back, and I was like, all right, great. I got the puzzle solved 100%, and it doesn't work. Right. I'm like, well, what am I missing?
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense then, that sum button was needed for... Yeah. Interesting.
So in order to set the frequencies, you have these two arrows, a left and a right, and it kind of rotates around, and the imager rotates as well. As you get close to the sound that you're trying to match up, one of the arrows will start to blink. And if it's blinking, then you need to go like more that direction until you finally center on it. And it's only like it's by the 10th point decimal to accurately pinpoint that frequency. And then you can hear the sound much clearer, and you're like, okay, that's definitely in the right spot. And then you figure that out.
Now, what I couldn't figure out for sure was, again, this might have been through my misunderstanding of how that frequency stuff was working, but it seemed like if I had other sounds on, they would like interfere. So like imagine if fire was like in front of water or something.
Right.
And to be able to clearly hear water, I needed to turn off fire. Is that the case? Do you guys know?
I don't think so.
I don't think so, no.
Okay, so you can conceivably activate them all.
I think it's general static and noise unless you're at the right frequency. Okay. It's just kind of like... Yeah.
All right, so now... So you solve that, and you go on to...
The best part of the game.
Half of the game for me.
Worst part of the game. So we get to the submarine thing, and it's a long subway with a bunch of different locations you can go to. Essentially, there's a track, and there's 8 locations you can possibly go down, but usually 6 of them are blocked off. And so we're actually fast forwarding through the entire sequence just to show people what it looks like. But when you were doing this, Lobos, because it's very long, I think there's like 12 or 15 locations you actually have to travel in, and there's no map. So you have to build the map, or there's another way to do this. We'll talk about that in just a minute. But when you got to this on stream, I was like, Lobos, don't even bother trying to solve this puzzle. It's not fun. You're not going to enjoy it. I think we all, Tom included, all solved it. Actually, I don't think I saw Tom. Tom, did you cheat on this?
I did not cheat because I remember
the gimmick.
Oh, what's the gimmick, Tom?
So most of the mist stages are self-contained, but I think this might be the one puzzle where there's a hint in the mechanical age when you're rotating the room. Because when you rotate the room in mechanical age, you hear a different sound at north, south, east, or west. And when you move this subway car, whenever it stops, you hear one of those sounds, or you might hear a combination of the sounds, and that tells you to go north, south, east, west, northeast, southeast, whatever. So that it's actually easy if you make that connection, but if you don't, I mean, you're gonna have a bad time.
So I thought what it was doing is, and it was incorrect if I would have taken more time to assess it, like Lobos had told me. But if I had thought that this was basically trying to designate a location, like a marker. So if you go there and you hear I call it the laser sound, you're like, okay, cool. I know that I hit the laser sound, so I can like map that out. I should hear a laser to verify I'm here. But apparently that sound isn't exactly it's not an indicator.
No, so I figured out the gimmick, but by the time I was about 90% through the track, because I had this map all laid out with where the sounds were, and at some point I went to go retrace my step, or not retrace my steps, but follow the path that we had taken, and I noticed that the same direction was playing the same sound, and I was like, oh, there seems to be a pattern there. And I'm sure we all had our own nicknames. Mine were Ping, Fart, Sproing, and Bucket. What was yours, Ryan?
I think it was Laser, Ding, Flit, and so I don't remember the third.
Well, it was probably Bucket or something related to Bucket. Canteen or Spittoon.
I think it was Spittoon or something.
Oh, we had Spittoon on the stream too. But
yeah, I had Ding, Pew, Boop, and Flitter.
Flitter, yeah.
Nice.
Very cool. Nice. Now we're getting to the Channelwood Age, which I had such a hard time finding. So by the way, there's a redwood forest, or what looks like to be a redwood forest, and I actually, for the longest time, didn't know that this little tree existed. So there's another screen next to this little hut that we talked about that had the furnace, and I only found out there was this big tree there by accident, like 4 hours into the game, while misclicking in Mist here on Mist Island. And so I had a hard time figuring out what this did. So you go to this area and there's just this large tree sitting there, and you can go to the room, the furnace room, and it looks like there's a window there, and you can see what is presumably that tree, and you're like, okay, cool. I understand it's showing me this tree that is behind there. And so you light the furnace and you're twisting the valve to increase the pressure, decrease the pressure. What I was expecting to see, if I solved the puzzle correctly, was some sort of movement with that. But
tree.
That thing doesn't move at all. So that's kind of a red herring.
Well, I commented on it the first time I entered that room. I was like, that's supposed to be the outside, but it looks like a painting or something like that. But I think it is just a painting.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can step outside and go to the right of that building, and it takes you to this kind of little walled off section that has a tree. Yeah. And while the pressure is high on that furnace, you'll hear this like mechanical clang every couple seconds, and you can see the tree like not erupting, but just elevating itself higher and higher until a certain point, and it stops. And if you notice it soon enough, there is like a little doorway on it. And so you're like, oh, okay. So you turn off the furnace, it starts to descend, and you can catch that room on the way down, and that takes you down to a room.
But you can also go up.
You can. Yeah.
Did you guys go up?
Oh, yeah.
That's cool,
yeah.
right?
Yeah. It's a little scary.
Well, then I was actually like, oh, can I actually get down from here? Yeah, there's a button that allows you to go down.
Yeah, and you can spam that button, and the tree will just drop really fast. And it's cool. It's like You don't even have to pay to go to the theme park. You can just ride this tree all day.
That's what I did.
Just put on your VR set and you're good. Yeah.
VR Mist sounds great.
They were going to make a Mist theme park. That could have been one of the rides.
That would have been awesome. And you could get on the gear that just spins. I don't know. Anyways.
Well, this Channelwood would not have been fun as a VR or a theme park. It's kind of a maze-ish area. Tom, this was your first one you indicated. Do you want to talk a little bit about how this area works?
Channelwood, yeah. So it's basically that one of those puzzles where you have to divert water to using what is it called, valves that go left or right, and you have to divert them to different pumps that make different elevators go up and down, basically. And then there's 2 different levels. You have to go to the first level first, and then get up there, find this I don't know how long it took you guys to find the lever.
Took a while, yeah.
To open the door. Because you're up in this network of tree houses where everything kind of looks the same, and then you have to activate the second elevator where you get to sort of the story of Cirrus and Achenar at Channelwood.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that little switch that you were talking about opens up a shortcut back down to the first floor, and you need that shortcut opened because you have to divert the water to the next set of elevators, and you can't have
have both active.
You can't have the power generator on both. So, once you get to the tree tops, though, it is even more maze-like. So at the very first level, it's a pretty easy location to navigate because there's a bunch of docks and they're sort of maze-like, but there's not a ton of them, and you can get the lay of the land pretty easily.
Yeah, there's only like 3 or 4 passages. I will say it was a little annoying to try because at every little intersection, you can look down and there's a valve and you can control the flow of the water. And sometimes I would be trying to click the valve and it would rotate me. And now I'm like, which way am I looking? And then have to kind of reorient myself. But overall, it's not too bad.
Yeah. Now, when we get up to the top here, I think this is, in general, it's a little challenging to move around on Mist. So it's really easy to go forward because you just click in the center of the screen.
Sure.
But occasionally it's not clear if turning to the right is actually going to turn you literally 90 degrees to the right, or it's going to turn you 45 degrees to the right. And so you'll have a situation when you get up to the tree tops here where there's essentially, think of it as like there's a middle path that you're coming from, and then there's 2 exits, one at if you're looking straight, consider straight 0 degrees. If you go negative 45 degrees, that's your left exit. And then negative 45 or positive 45 degrees is your right exit. And so it was very challenging to understand, is there actually only 3 entrances, exits to this, or are there actually 4? You know what I'm talking about?
No, because it's this cylindrical thing kind of, or like octagonal, and you can click and keep moving around it, but the perspective doesn't really change. It keeps like walls and open passageways in kind of the same location. So you could keep clicking and being like, I don't know if this is just 2 bridges or there's not a whole lot of distinction there. So yeah, you can run around here and think you're in a different place, but be in the same place a lot.
And
they need us a color code each room.
Yeah, that would help.
Spray paint each one.
Or have you ability to drop a line, like rope, and just, here's the areas I've been.
Yeah.
I had a lot of troubles trying to find that lever that Tom was talking about. But once you find it, you're like, okay, I think I'm getting the hang of this. And as you go to the elevator, go to the 3rd floor, I'm like, oh gosh, I hope the area isn't even more complicated up there. But it's actually not too bad. You go up to the 3rd area, and there's really only a couple rooms there.
Yeah,
right?
I think is it 3 rooms? There's like a room with like this device that will play this like holographic kind of image, which is controlled by a device in Achenar's room, I think, because you can play little video files on that. And most of them are just him talking in this like nonsense language, presumably the language of the people that lived here. If you read the books, it kind of tells you about
is
monkeys
that the case?
Okay. Anyways, but when the last image or video playback is Cirrus, his brother, who's like, what a nice device you have here, Achenar. Like, pity if someone would erase it all. and you're like, okay, all right. So on that note, at this point in the game, you've seen a lot of like Cirrus and Achenar. It's like rooms and what they're up to. And I was always, I kind of didn't want to trust either one, but if I had to pick one, it seemed like Cyrus in the Red Book, it was kind of the more, like he did seem a little more intelligent, but also crafty and just kind of like sinister. Whereas Akinar is, I mean, he acts crazy, but I don't know.
No, I totally agree.
little more innocent, maybe.
I also thought Cyrus was like the good guy here. Ultimately, you find out they're both bad, but Cyrus
Spoilers.
seems more put together. You know, he's like, oh, I've actually got a plan here.
Sure.
And so we actually get to what's his name? Oh, I always forget his name.
Atris?
No, not
Cyrus?
actress.
Akinar?
The brother, Aknar. Aknar. We go to his room, and there's a really cool thing here because there's a chest here with some little spikes around it, and you can click on the section in the middle, and it's like a big bear trap just comes and tries to eat your hand, and it's like, oh, yeah, this guy's really twisted.
I mean, he did have a torture room, so to be fair.
Yeah, and actually, I didn't read the books here, but I did learn a little bit about the Channelwood Age, and apparently, so ages ago, humans lived peacefully on the surface, and then there's the tree dwellers that lived in the trees, and they didn't really interact a whole lot. But I think Tom actually brought up this question on his stream where it was like, where are all the people in Channelwood? Are they all killed, or is this just a very small section of the Channelwood Age and it's still populated elsewhere? Ignoring the fact that they didn't have the memory, constraints to actually get rendering characters in the game.
Yeah.
In any case, you get the blue and the red page from Channelwood, and in my playthrough, that was the last couple pages. And so I go and I bring back the pages to the book, and they have some very interesting things to say. What do they say?
Yeah, well, I just want to mention real quick that in order to get the red and blue pages back, you do have to go through areas twice because you can only carry one at a time.
That's true.
So that means you have to do the spaceship track puzzle.
The subway
twice.
puzzle. You
So hopefully you figured out the gimmick because going back through there is,
Yep.
Or you've got a good map. Either way.
You can skip the animations if you hit escape.
Oh, now
well,
that is a time saver.
I should have known that.
Yeah, I did not know that either.
Tom, what do once you complete both books? By the way, you don't need to complete both books to actually get the true ending. You only need to complete one book because they each give you the same piece of information. Tom, you know what that is?
Yeah, so there's a book on the end of the middle bookshelf which has hundreds of different codes, which you see, which was on screen, with all these squares on a board in the fireplace where you can hit a button. And they tell you to go to 158, and when you hit 158 and hit the button, the fireplace turns, and you see a final red page, the final blue page, and then a green book, which they really, really don't want you to touch.
Yeah.
Conveniently.
And I actually was on board when I first talked to Cyrus. I was like, all right, cool. Because he's like, bring me the red page, don't do the blue page, and certainly don't touch that green page because that's going to imprison you. I'm like, well, Cyrus, I think we've got a good relationship here. I'm gonna trust you. So we're gonna put the red page in there, and it was actually a brilliant moment there. So what happens? Did you actually, Lobos? Did you actually put any of the pages in the red or blue?
I did. I did all the endings, of course. Okay. Although I think I remembered what happens if you help out either of the brothers. Conveniently, well, the screen shrinks to this tiny little square as your porthole outside, as you are sucked into the book in place of whichever brother, and both of them are just kind of like, "Ha, you fool!" They have this long dialogue of just taunting you,
very long,
while they rip out the pages that you have now returned to the book, which. If all the pages are there, I don't know. I guess there's maybe there's a cooldown for getting out of the book.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you could just swap forever and then nobody would. But anyways, they rip out the pages and you get more staticky and they're just laughing.
And then you're like, oh, I understand. Well, I guess you would have already understood if you had watched the sequences when you've been putting pages in. Mm-hmm. But it's really cool to be like, oh, that's why it's staticky. It's, people ripped out the pages there. Yeah. And so at the end, the screen goes completely black and nothing happens.
Nothing happens.
You're there.
That's you in the book.
Somewhere there's someone sitting at their computer from 1993 being
Waiting.
like, if one of these days someone's going to come save me.
They just left on their Tandy laptop just on the corner.
There should be a 24/7 Twitch stream on just like trying to get out of the book.
Secret mist ending.
So
Blue
ultimately, but once I talked to Aknar and he's like, oh, don't touch the green book. I'm like, well, wait a minute. If both brothers don't want me to touch the green book, then that means that is something that, because those two brothers don't agree on anything.
Right.
So you're like, okay,
Right.
well, I know this has got to be.
They've agreed on one thing. Yeah.
And so you go there and
Well, so first you can open the green book.
Yes,
And we get a
he talks to
video
you.
message from Atris. Oh, I guess it's a live feed message. And he tells you, he gives you a tip on how to get a page for his green book that allows you to travel there and talk to him. That is the thing that I figured out on accident at the beginning of the game. The way you do that is you have all of the marker switches set to on across Mist Island. Then you return to the first one on the dock, and then you turn that switch off. And a little panel opens below, and there's a page there. And I did that by accident. And I was like, okay, well, we got this page. But yeah, so and this is also how you can kind of finish the game really quickly, is you know to turn on those switches, you grab the page, and you can already know what the pattern is to enter into the fireplace. And then using the page or not, you can travel to wherever Atris is located, and he has a discussion with you about what to do.
yeah, and if you come here without the page, I think, Tom, did you do this ending?
Yeah, that's the best ending in the game.
It's good. It's a good
the angry
ending.
Atris ending.
So what happens there?
So he says, "Did you bring the page?" And you're like, you don't say anything. He's like, "You didn't bring the page." And then he gets a little angry. "You didn't bring the page," and then you just live there with him forever.
Yeah, he says, well, I guess we'll be spending forever
do you think
together.
he's a good Good roommate, Tom?
Probably he's pretty quiet, just writes all the time.
Yeah.
He might yell at you, a couple times a day.
But he
You
didn't
bring the page.
He didn't get all that angry about the fact that you've ruined everything for fixing his mess. He kind of just sighs and he's like, well, I hope you enjoy being together forever.
He is very calm and collected. But
Didn't sink in yet.
Yeah.
if you do give him the page, he's like, great. He kind of fills you in more about the problems, and he's like, all right, I'm gonna go away for a little bit. I'll be back. And he literally just goes away, and you're like, yeah, it's probably good 15 seconds. I was just looking around. I was like, what do I do now? And then he's like, oh, I've come back. He's like, that was unpleasant, but I've sealed away them forever. But he does leave you with a little cliffhanger. He's like, there's even more powerful evil, and I guess that comes into play later on in the sequels.
Also, yeah, you can return to Mist Island and look at where the brothers' books were, and there's just char marks, and you're like, oh
Yeah.
my goodness, what
That's cool.
happened?
And you can explore the island. There's not really anything to do. I mean, you've pretty much already explored the island. There's really no end credits here
For that ending.
for that ending.
When do the credits play?
They don't play.
Oh, they don't?
You just walk
all?
around. I have the credits playing here because
Oh.
you can view the credits from the main menu there.
Got you.
When I was a kid, I looked at internet rumors, and so I explored all the islands for super secrets. There
Oh,
was
man.
supposedly
Oh, nice.
a secret red button on the subway car that if you hit, you open up a secret door, but that was not true.
Oh, those were the best.
Those are the
times when-
best times. Like,
Yeah.
there's a 17th Colossus in Shadow of the Colossus, or like,
Right.
and everybody's spending hours trying to find the thing. But yeah.
Well, that's the Mist episode. We've hit the end credits there, so I want to thank everyone for watching us on Twitch or listening to us on the podcast. And a real special thanks to Retrograde Tom. Great retro streamer on Twitch. I really encourage people to take a look at his channel. Tom, what are you up to this week?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm Retrograde Tom, retro variety streamer. This week I'm playing Realms of the Haunting, which is a 3D action adventure shooter. I'm normally not this tiny, but so sorry if you're looking to follow a tiny person. But yeah, we goof around and we play a lot of different obscure or popular retro games on my channel.
And what times do you usually stream at?
I do 9 a.m. Eastern, Sunday, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday.
Nice.
All right. Well,
Very cool.
you again. Thank you so much, Tom.
Thank you.
So we wanted to, again, a big shout out to all of our Patreon supporters. We'd love to see you all in the Discord, and we're excited to chat with you there about especially the upcoming games. If you want to also support the show, please head on over to patreon.com Saturday Morning Gaming Show to learn more there. But let's actually talk about the Hall of Heroes.
Let's. Yeah.
So the Hall of Heroes is a chance for you to flex your gamer cred. Each episode, simply play and beat the game. Then take a snap of the credit screen along with your name somewhere nearby, upload that on over to Imager, and shoot a link over to Saturday Morning Gaming Show at gmail.com. But let's go over the Hall of Heroes entrance for Myst.
Let's do it. There weren't a whole lot this time. Maybe Myst was a little too puzzling for some people. But we do have a couple.
That's great.
First up, we do have Gaming Steiner continuing, completing games here.
Yeah, does he have anything to say?
Oh, right, yeah. Finally, after many attempts over the years, I've conquered Myst. Great game. Keep up the wonderful content. Thank you, Gaming Steiner. And then we have Nonsense Megia. Says, hey guys, had a great time on my first playthrough of Myst. Definitely was not expecting the Green Book ending. Awesome game pick. Looking forward to the podcast. Well, I hope it was worth your time. Brisk Mountain. Hope this was the right game, LOL.
Also, if you're looking at the image here, I'm not sure if we should give Brisk Mountain the points because we didn't validate he got the right ending. What do you think? What do you think? Should we give him the points?
It's clearly an ending. I think. Yeah. I just spoiled the Hall of Heroes.
We'll give him the points. Let's take a look at the results for episode 9. At 15 with 5 points, we have Kyaku, Splov1, Datashi Senpai, and the Kyle Mack.
Tied at number 11, Yoshi 35, Lulu Kachu, Jazz Never Sleeps, and Dog Type with 10 points.
At number 7, we have Tobanaga at 15 points.
20 points at number 6, Next Star.
And at down to 5 this time, it's Alamaxia. He's still got 50 points.
A lot of points. Big disparity there. Nonsense Megia, 55 points, number 4.
Haratham Holden at number 3 with 70 points.
And still tied for the lead, Gaming Steiner and Brisk Mountain with 80 points.
All right, cool. Well, quick updates on the next episode. The next episode is going to be the end of season 1 of the Saturday Morning Gaming Show. So this will be your last opportunity to get your name on the Hall of Heroes. And then after that, we will be resetting the leaderboards and allowing everyone to jump in and start again.
Yeah.
But
do you think, I mean, we haven't discussed this yet, but I feel like we should have some way where we can't have a tie for first place, like some sort of point, right? Or unless you want to enable 2 first placers by the end of it.
How about if no one wins, everyone loses?
Okay, that's
a
wow. The harsh ending. I get it. All right, fair enough.
Let's talk about the next game we're going to be playing, though, Lobos.
What is the next game that we're going to be playing?
This is an amazing game, one of my favorites. I'm currently playing through it right now. It is a Halloween episode, special Halloween episode. It's going to be really amazing, and I wanted a really kind of spooky game, but I didn't want it to be terrifying.
Fair enough.
So we're going to pick up System Shock 2 for the PC. That's a great hybrid of RPG and first-person shooting. It's creepy. It's got ghosts. It's got spirits. It's got evil AI.
I've actually never played all the way through it. What about you, Tom? Have you played System Shock 2?
Nope. I was thinking about playing it soon, actually.
Well, there you go. You can get on that leaderboard before the end of season 1.
There you go.
Yeah. Get last place.
Yeah.
Hey, tied for... Well, maybe not. Okay.
Again, that will be a very special Halloween episode. So that's going to be on October 26th. So basically the Saturday before Halloween. I think Lobos is going to dress up. And I'll probably dress up too. So if you want to dress up and also watch us.
Totally.
You should do that.
I'll dress up.
Everyone should dress up. Hey, and also if you want to send in images of your costume, that would be great. Whatever you want to do, we'll show those on air there.
Sounds good.
Well, sadly, we've reached the end credits of this episode, and we wanted to thank everyone for watching us on Twitch, twitch.com Lobos Jr., or listening to us on the podcast.
Sorry, I'm pinning. Oh,
I
there's
know.
there's
You
a
haven't-
hug. Oh, you don't have enough arms. There you go.
Oh.
There, that looks good. That looks better. Sorry. Sorry for making
Well,
you.
that's okay.
so
We'll edit.
small on screen.
We'll edit this inconsistency in post. That's fine. I'll
Our Twitch airs every other Saturday, 9:30 Central U.S. time, and the podcast releases the next Sunday. Make sure to follow and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Google, or whatever your platform of choice is.
If you have any feedback, we'd love to hear from you. Shoot us an email at SaturdayMorningGamingShow@gmail.com.
Or follow us and tweet at us on Twitter at SaturdayMGaming.
And a special shout out to TechnoAxe for much of the music this episode.
For Saturday Morning Gaming, I'm Lobos.
And I'm Ryan. We'll see you October 26th for a special Halloween episode of System Shock 2.
And he's Tom.
Bye.
All right, so what we should do, I actually should say, have Tom just say, and I'm Tom.
Oh, sure.
So I'll edit that, but Tom, can we just get you to say, and I'm Tom? Or I'm Retrograde Tom, or however you want to say that.
And I'm Retrograde Tom.
Perfect.
Fantastic. I
Perfect.
think we got everything. It was a
That's
pleasure.
a
Again,
wrap.
Retrograde Tom, thank you so much. I love your streams, man. I hope that everyone gets a chance to check him out. Real cool dude.
Thanks for
and
having
make-
me. It was fun.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
Yeah, just let us know. I don't know if there's a game you're itching to cover, and I'm sure
Yeah.
we're open to it.
Yeah.
We love
Okay.
retro
Okay, yeah.
stuff.
If you need a guest, yeah, let me know.
Sweet.
Great.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, I think Lobos, what do you got going on next? Are you doing some Code Vein?
I'm going to be doing some Code Vein, continuing that first playthrough. Been
All
enjoying
right.
it a lot. Yeah, it's fun. It's a lot of fun.
Awesome, man.
I'm going to play your favorite song here as the
Oh
outro.
yeah. We were. It's,
Which one was it? Cirrus's theme?
I think so.
And Mechanical Age? All right, let's see.
think so.
Let's see if this is it.
Yeah, this is it. This
That is
song
it.
is so good.
All right,
everyone.
cool. We'll see you guys next time. Thank you again, Tom. And yeah, take care.
Take care, everyone. We'll see ya.